You get one life. You only get the one. There's no reruns. There's no, well, I'll start again. No, you get this one. There will never be the right time to do something. You have to make that happen. You have to go in there, because a life going after a goal, whether you achieve it or not, is never a life wasted.
What's the number one attribute to attaining their dream physique?
Hard work. It's a lot of hard work, and there is no shortcut to be able to get it. No matter how much you try, you still have to come down to one thing. The body and soul of it will always be your determination and your hard work. I met my wife Mel at the gym. When I said, oh yeah, Mel's coaching me, we got a lot of backlash going, oh, I'm proving coach, the person, what does she know, whatever. And you had to sit there and grip your teeth and take it. That for me, it really pissed me off, because I sat there and I heard so many foul things being said. The minute we are in, I'm gonna call you to come on the stage and you're gonna pick up that trophy because it's yours.
Today's interview is with Mr. Olympia, Samson Dauda. I'm super excited today to announce a new partnership and sponsor who helps support and make all these documentaries happen, Marek Health. Marek have been helping me ever since I did the world's heaviest marathon to get my body back into shape, and more importantly, my mind, and get rid of this terrible brain fog I've been experiencing. I'm currently going through monitoring to find out exactly what's wrong with my body so I can optimize my lifestyle to try and improve that. But they don't just offer that kind of service. They offer TRT, peptides, monitoring to make sure that you can try and figure out what's wrong and move forward in a healthy way. That's why I'm super excited to do this project as our launch off project, because I'll be interviewing Mr. Olympia, Samson Dauda, who is also an ambassador for Marek Health. So Marek Health made this documentary and this interview possible, and they're trying to help support the cause of inspiring change. I also want to say a massive thank you to our Patreon members. We are currently at 200 members. It's been incredible support. Because there's been so much support, we're also offering a free 7-day trial for the executive tier, linked down below. It makes all of this possible. You get exclusive access, loads of different videos, extended cuts, behind the scenes, all that kind of stuff. But I'll talk about it a little bit later on in the video. And one last favor to ask you guys. My brother Luke is trying to race to 1 million subscribers on Mulligan Brothers Motivation. I want to get 1 million before he does on Mulligan's interview. So if you're not subscribed, go down below, hit that subscribe button. Come on, we can do it this year. And let's dive into this amazing episode with Mr. Olympia. For people who don't know, just introduce yourself and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Samson Dauda. I'm a professional bodybuilder and active current Mr. Olympia.
I said that Marek are one of the people supporting us to come out here, but also we have like a community of Patreon members. I don't know if you've seen Patreon.
Oh, yes, I have.
Yeah. And they sort of support us, and what we do in return is like ask a specific community question. So just to get off the bat, I just get that out of the way. So a lot of people are asking, what's the number one attribute to attaining their dream physique?
Hard work. It's a lot of hard work, and one of those things is like you have to have that determination to want to achieve something that really sort of strives and puts you to the point of, okay, I want to get this no matter what, and I'm going to do whatever I can to maybe to get it. And that's something that I think first and foremost, you got to have that drive to want it that badly.
Everyone's looking for the shortcut, the cheat code, but that's what it comes down to, man.
It's human nature, right? It's like we want it now, and we don't really want to work that hard to get it. But unfortunately, when it comes to something like your physical being, something nature to you, there is no shortcut to be able to get it. No matter how much you try, you still have to come down to one thing. You can't buy it, you can't shortcut it, you can't overstep it. It will always still come down to just your determination and hard work. And I think this is what sort of like this sport entails, is there is no shortcut to it. There is no something you can, buy or ask someone to do it for you. You have to come down and you have to do it yourself, and you have to go through all of it yourself. And in hand, that's why I love about it the most. And, no matter how much people try to sell you different ideas of, oh, you can just do it if you just do this little thing, and all you have to do is this much and all that. No, it will always come down to the main thing. The body and soul of it will always be your determination and your hard work.
Let's take it right back to early days. So you were born in Nigeria.
Yes.
And what was childhood like? How would you describe that to someone from the UK, from America?
So Nigeria, obviously, third world country, Nigeria. Nigeria is obviously an up and developing country, and it's come a long way since the last when I was there. So I was born in Nigeria in 1986. My family did very well for where they were in Nigeria and everything else. And right from the promise, from far as I could remember, I've always been sort of put in a world where I was independent. So I think when I got to about 10, 12 years old, I was moved to boarding school, and a boarding school in Nigeria is it's like military school, So that was where my awareness of my surrounding and life first started. I was always close to my parents, but we were never that. I've never been someone that was close to my parents, like that. I've never had that sort of closeness to any of my mom or my dad, because right from when I was actually really aware of my world around me, I was already independently in boarding house. I was already having teachers and drill instructors and people like that. I was already sort of telling me what's right and what's wrong. So it was very tough. It was extremely tough. And you know what? I always said because of that, it made me the person I am now. Because of that harshness and that toughness and that strict discipline lifestyle that I was brought up in. My parents were always very disciplined and very strict. So then going to boarding house, actually they took it even one step further to a lot more extreme in that discipline idea of it. It was that, okay, you stay in a bunkhouse with 20 other people, 20 other guys, and your whole idea from the moment you wake up, there's a drill. Okay, get up, make your bed, clean your corner. Okay, you got to go for a run. Then you come back and run. Food is this time, that time, that time. Then you have to go to school, come back, clean your room, do this. And everything was always that fixed structure. And the consequence of not following that structure was always a severe one. So we were just kind of drilled into us right from the get-go. I was always kind of into that drill of things. And you're trying to find, as a young person, you're trying to find your knowledge of the world in that state. And although you feel like because all your friends were all in it with you at the time, you're not aware of what was wrong with that structure, because the love and the actual compassion you never got, is gone. You never had that. You're always brought up in this strict regime, and that's all you got. So you never grew attached or close to anybody that could give you that sort of compassion in your early stages of your life. And me going through my teenage years, this is all I remember. This is all I had was, okay, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to be on time, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to be disciplined the whole time. There's nothing else, and they expect success, they expect excellence from you all the time. And my dad was always like that himself. So this is all I ever knew. And you're always trying to please. You're always trying to show that I'm doing my best. I'm good. And look, I'm doing it. So even when you were giving your all, it would never be enough. So growing up in that environment, it changes the way you are as an individual. It ingrains some things in you that can help you thrive in life, but also at the same time can help you be very self-destructive.
Well, it's interesting because, the attribute that you need the most is that discipline.
Yeah.
And you're extremely disciplined, today. Is there anything that stands out as looking back to those, those boarding school days?
I mean, yeah, because the whole idea of it, I mean, I always look at bodybuilding like it was a double-edged sword, man. It was a love-hate thing. At one point, I hated every moment of it. I hated being in that place. I hated all we went through. I hated everything else. But I also know that ingrained in me a lot of life lessons, very early stages that I'm using today. At the same time, I hated my parents for how they did that period with me. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have that thrive to want to achieve something so much. Now I want to be better. I want to prove that I am better and I'm worth more and I can do this and really push for more. And, it's something that is, at the time, I never wasn't aware of. And when I didn't have a hobby or I didn't have a path of knowing, okay, what I wanted to be in life when I grew up, it was very self-destructive to me. It was always, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So everything, I was very self-destructive in that way because I just felt like there was all this potential and energy there, but I didn't know where to channel it to. So it made me very angry, very unconfused, and very self-destructive. And it took a long time for me to finally, my adult life to finally realize where all that emotion, where all that came from.
Wow. So is there a moment that you could share that would explain the self-destruction?
Yeah. So, one of the things is like relationship with adults or with authority figure. Even till today, I still I don't have a good relationship with authority figure. It's only now that I'm getting a little bit more better at letting myself out there, because when we were younger, it's like you get spoken to, you never talk back. So when someone in authority figure tells you, okay, you need to do this, you need to do it now. Whether they're right or they're wrong, you can never object. You have to go with it. So when I kind of came to the UK and I was getting a lot of that and bullied from places and getting asked to do things that were wrong, I lashed out. It was always, okay, I stay quiet, yeah. And then there was never, oh, no, can we do this? Or actually like the diplomacy part of it. It was always, you were quiet, you said yes, you can, yes, and then you exploded because it built up. So you were very self-destructive and in that way of, anybody as an authority figure I don't speak to, I don't get on with automatically. I see them as an enemy, I see them as a threat. I see them as, okay, they're my boss. No, I'm gonna hate you. So for a long time, this is my premise. Anybody that's in a position of authority, from my teachers all the way to people I work for, everything, it was automatically, I'm like, they're the bad guys.
Oh, I mean, so it must have made it tough having a job, like
Oh,
getting a job.
yeah.
So you went into construction, or?
Yeah, so first when I came up to when I got my first job, I did a bunch of different, I've done a lot of different jobs, I was a refuse collector, I've been a postman, I've worked at factories, warehouse and everything else. And then I worked at a hospital for 10 years. From 2005 all the way to 2010, I worked at a hospital as a porter. And that was one of the big one. And then from there, I was at college at the same time. I studied construction work. And then I transferred from there to working into construction. And that was kind of like, okay, what happened was, I self-realized that I was really good at individual things, practical stuff, working with your hands and fixing and all those stuff. Like I was really sort of good at it and I really enjoyed that. And when I kind of noticed that, it was something I had the talent for, I said, okay, you know what, let me go into something like that I can do and fix things and build things and everything else. So that was what kind of pushed me into construction and actually working in something like that.
And then where was the transition into sport? So you'd had sport throughout your whole childhood and into your teens as well?
Yeah, so, I started off obviously being Nigeria, we started off with the most basic one, which is always football. You play football and everything else. And I was always fast and always good on my feet. And, it's just practical guy. So I was always good at football and stuff like that. And then when we moved to the UK, I played football then for UK, but then I started playing basketball. And I love basketball a lot. And I played that, playing basketball in winter in the UK when it was pressing down rain, it was, I don't care. I played all year round, and, that was one of those things that I just really kind of loved. And then I think when we got a bit older and I would come into my 20s, somebody at my job at the time said, look, have you ever thought about like, come give rugby a go? It's a real manly game, you get to hit people, you get to think. And being a guy where I was just so full of rage and anger and like, perfect. I get to take that out on the field. I get to be dominant and I get to, really explode and hit myself and kind of do that in the field. So I was like, okay, so rugby just came into play. But even coming through it, and the sport was always my outlet because every other premise of my life was always withheld. I was always quiet. I was always shy. I was always an introvert. I never talked about anything that went through my mind, any emotion, anything that was all through. It was always bottled up. I never spoke back. I never told anybody. I never let anybody in at all. So, throughout my time, even when I was playing sports, I always held back because I never want to stand out. I never want to be seen. I always want to be in the background. So even when I knew I was good at something, I was good at part of sport, in a team sport, I always hold back a bit and be like, okay, because I never want to be the guy that, he's showing off. Oh, look, he's always trying to big up himself. So I always wanted to be just good enough to be like, okay, you're good at it, but never good enough to be a standout. And that was always me growing up. Even when I was, a teen, and we went out for the beach and everything else, I had abs, but I would never take my top off of the beach. I'd never take my top off of the pool. People were like, why are you still, no, I'm okay. I'm like, why would, but I never wanted any attention. I always wanted to be just in the background and just go along, and it was for a long time, that was it, that was me. Even when we played team sport, it was like rugby field. I knew I was the fastest on the field. I knew if I got the ball, I could run across the whole length of the field without batting an eye, but I would never do it because it was always like, you feel like you were going to be seen for showing off too much, or you weren't being part of a team or something like that. So I always held myself back just a bit. And then when it got to the point where I was driving a lot of it, I'll find an excuse to pull out. I'll say, oh, this coach doesn't like me, or the team is doing this, or oh, I'm too tired, or I'm not interested in it. And I'll always find a reason to just quit that sport. So yeah, so that kind of went on through it. So we went from one sport to the next. And rugby was one that got me transferred into bodybuilding.
So then, the idea of shying away and going into bodybuilding is like, it's such a crazy transition. What was that? let's talk about finding bodybuilding first.
Yeah.
Like what was that moment like?
So it was crazy because obviously I started playing rugby for a few years, and I really enjoyed rugby. I really enjoyed the man aspect. I really enjoyed the team aspect of it because playing with rugby, bunch of rugby guys, and it was always older guys as well. I was on my team. They, for the first people that I actually little bit opened up to. They were the first time I felt welcomed into a team sport, because with rugby, it's almost like you go in the field, you hit each other, you hammer each other, and then you go to the pub for a drink straight afterwards, and you all laugh and joke about it. So with that dynamic, it took a while, but the team finally got me to come out of my shell just a little bit. And they kind of gave me compliments. Oh, dude, you're good at it. Come on, you're great. And every time they really believed, and they really got me come out of my shell just enough for me to feel like, oh yeah, you know what? I get it now. I get it. It's not just us playing a team on a field. There's camaraderie in it. There's fellowship. There's that in it. And I got that for the first time fully, and I really loved that. And I was like, you know what? I get it. I'm going to stand there and I'm going to take a hit for you, and I'm going to do that for you, and we're going to do it together. And rugby sort of got me into that premise of it. So when I wanted to be better at that. So I was always really skinny. I was like 71 kilos, small, skinny dude. And I started going to the gym to really bulk up, because coach said, dude, if you're going to be taking hits by big guys, you're going to need a little bit more mass, or you're going to get hurt badly. So I was like, okay. Started going to the gym just to put on some more muscle. So that's all one thing led into another, because as soon as I got into the gym to start training for rugby, I started growing quickly. And the guys at rugby, they kept on noticing, going, dude, you're putting on muscle quite fast. And I was like, okay, no big deal. Okay, I just love going to the gym and I love training. And they started noticing it. And basically, I met my wife Mel at the gym. We were training in Colchester, and we kind of just met at the gym and we started training together. And after like a few months, I think about 6 months over, she kind of said to me that, look, like, she had more knowledge, a little bit more about bodybuilding and stuff like that. She was like, have you ever thought about doing a physique competition? And I was kind of automatically, being a hardcore rugby guy, I'm like, what do you mean physique competition? Oh, like bodybuilding competition. I was like, dude, I'm a rugby guy, man. I'm like, oh, macho, man, I don't do none of that. Going on stage with pants on, what the hell's wrong? No. And even the idea of me stripping off in front of people was beyond anything I would ever do. This is so beyond my world. It would never happen. It wasn't even a question. It was like, no. So when, she said it, I completely dismissed. I was like, no, not for me. So a few months later, the guys at the rugby pitch, when we finish the game, we'll go to the change room, we'll have showers, and they were looking at me going, dude, man, you go physique, you're very symmetrical, you're very balanced. Like, have you ever thought about doing physique competition? I was like, what the hell, you too? What's this all about? Like, what's going on? Why is people saying this? So after a while, it was it was coming up towards the end of 2013. And I kind of, kept on growing, getting better at it, and sort of putting on the whole muscle and looking the part. And then she brought it up a few times about it, like, look, you better think about it, just think about it. And then at one point, I think one of the friends in my gym, then he competed at one of the local shows, and I think he won his class at it. And I was like, dude, I know I got more muscle than you. If you can win one, then hell, I definitely would win one. So I thought, actually, you know what, maybe this is something I would do. Maybe this is something that I want to give it a go. Let me see what it's about, So I self-told her and said, look, yeah, this bodybuilding thing, let's give it a try. Let's just see what to do. So we just kind of like, okay, we looked at the calendar, we looked at the shows around, and there was a show local to me and the coaches are there. I think this was about towards the end of 2010. The show was happening in the beginning of 2014 in April. So I was like, yeah, there's a show there. Should we just like sign up for it? So that's what we kind of did. And from that point on, like, we signed up for it. And from that point on, I started looking into, okay, what is bodybuilding? What is this sport? What is this thing that they keep going on about, And that's the first time my own life and actually seeing what it is actually started.
At what moment was you like hooked? Like was there a specific, like you saw a show, you saw a particular bodybuilder, or you had an experience win or something?
I mean, my one is, we obviously, my training changed immediately, because I was training for explosive work in rugby and stuff like that. The minute we said, okay, we're going to do a bodybuilding show, automatically I was like, okay, how do you train like a bodybuilder? How do you train? You have to train body parts, you have to train group, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to diet, you have to, I didn't diet. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do that part. But I still understood the idea of training and what goes into it. So when we picked out the show, we were like, okay, I started watching YouTubes and started watching, shows that have happened on the Olympia and everything else. That was the first time I ever watched the Olympia on YouTube, a rerun. I remember it's 2013. Phil Heath just won his third Olympia, and I looked at it, I was blown away. I was like, I didn't even know human beings could even look like that. It was so beyond. I mean, so Arnold and everything else, but that for me was it was mind blowing. I just like, damn. And that sort of got me into the idea of, maybe I like it. But I always thought to myself, I want to be big, but I don't want to be that big. The same thing with everybody. Oh, I don't want that much muscle. I want to be big though, but not that big. So I never really saw that as something that I wanted to do. I was like, yeah, that's nice, but I like it and it's cool, but I don't want to go that far. So I just want to do a local show and see how I got on. And I think it's until the point where we actually went through and we competed and that was the point I got hooked on it. That was the point that it really sunk into me, and I was like, holy shit, like this, I'm good at this. This is something I can actually do. And if anything, people told me that more than I even believed in myself, because we did a local show, and we did the first timer show, which was just for people that have never competed before. And I remember, training for months for her. Mel, she put me through my training and everything else, and she sort of told me how, okay, muscle groups, what the muscle groups are, what they do, and how they connect to each other, how each one of them works, and every part of that. And we adapted my training to sort of be now bodybuilding training. So we were surprised how fast my physique grew during that period when I switched to bodybuilding, how well it developed into that. So when we did the first timers, I remember people were like, you sure this is your first time? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, if you say so. What? And I remember even being then, it was the idea of the training part wasn't the difficult part. The part we were more scared for was, you've never stood in front of anybody with your clothes off. You've never even thought, you hate the idea of being center of attention. Now you're gonna go on a stage in front of thousands of people, strip off, walk on stage with your pants and flex. That is nothing like your character at all. It's just nothing. We don't even know. We were so scared about, okay, how is this actually going to happen? How can this even be possible? So for months we were sort of going, okay, physique is coming well, but are you actually going to do it? Are you actually going to stand on stage? And the fear that was always the biggest fear was, are you going to stand on stage? So I remember backstage when we were about to go, the day of the show, we were backstage and it was like, okay guys, first timers, get ready. You're starting the show, you're going on first. It took me 20 minutes to take my clothes off backstage. We were standing there, they were like, oh, come on guys, you gotta get ready. And I'm like, okay. And it was like, strip off then. 1 minute. And I was like, and they kept, we gotta go. And it took me 20 minutes to finally take my clothes off. I remember, even at the time we were in this sports hall, I remember I had to turn around, face the wall. I face the back from the wall and I just look at the wall and then strip off. And I remember the time when I first stripped off, the whole room went quiet. And I was kind of like, oh shit. And I turned around, everybody was looking at me, and that was like, okay, crap. This is not good. And I kept on having my head like, okay, you've practiced this moment over and over again. Just do what you practice. Just do what you practice. And then they queued us up. We walked out on stage in front of loads of people. And the minute we walked out on stage, something just switched. I don't know. It just out of nowhere, I walked on stage, and it felt like I've done this 1,000 times. I come up stage and I was completely confident. I was walking around the stage. I was giving it come on, let's go. And I'm freaking up and down the stage like I was meant to be there. And we came back to stage. We were looking, where the hell did that come from? And we looked at it, I have no idea. I don't know. And it just literally felt like you felt at home on it. You felt at home on that stage. And I came out, I was like, I want to go back. I want to do it again. So I remember we did this first timer show and I won the show that morning. And everyone was so impressed that the show promoters came up to me and going, man, you're the best first timers we've seen in a long time. The big boys, the open class is going to be on later tonight. Would you stick around there and jump on stage with them as well and just see how you get on? And I was like, well, I already go where I came for. Yeah, I'll get to do it again. So waited all the way to the end of the night, got backstage and the open guys were pumping up. And I remember looking going, holy crap, these guys are big. Oh my God, these guys are big. And then one of the guys that was watching the show came out going, you know what, I think you're going to win this class too. And I looked at him like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you kidding me? He goes, no, I really think you're going to win this class too. Oh, yeah, whatever. So we go on stage and go on stage with the open class, did it all again. I ended up winning that class as well. And that was the moment I was like, what the hell? And I remember the promoter at the time going, oh, this young man, before he announced the result, he was like, oh, this young man came in that gym about 6 months ago. He started training, and I would like to say, we now have a superstar, the new winner. This, and I was like, okay. And I remember coming off stage, and so many people came up to me going, dude, you need to really think about taking this seriously because you actually have a future in this. This is something that you actually have a future in. And I was like, I was about to go back to rugby. It was just a trial. Let me just see if I like it or not. And people kept on saying that to me, say, dude, you got talent. You need to think about doing this. This is something that you could probably go all the way in. So yeah, so that just kind of just hooked for me at that point. I was like, okay, this is me. This is something I want to do. Yeah, okay.
Do you believe in destiny or anything like that? Like if you get on that stage, you get that message that you're supposed to be here. That's
man. It's honestly, if onto those kind of moments, there's so many things in my life that led up to that moment that would have gone the other way, and I would never have done bodybuilding. There's so many moments that it would have definitely it wouldn't have happened, And you think about all that coming up. The last thing I ever thought I would ever be able to do would be the point that, knowing my personality at the time, it was to get on a stage and flex. It was so beyond my character at all, completely. It was something that I never knew that it could probably even possible. So the fact that it just kind of played out the way it did and things just lined up, fortunately, the way it did, and that happened. And then even all the way till now, every single time I'm like, it feels too perfectly aligned for me not to believe it,
Wow. I mean, yeah, Nat stood here now, like it makes perfect sense, but that's so crazy. There's points I'm gonna just skip through with the career, but is there something that stands out that was like, once you were fully, immersed in it, you're like, all right, I'm committing to this. Was there anything that was a big setback that you were, almost had you at the point of like, I don't know if I can do this?
I mean, 2020 was the year where I was gonna quit. I literally was gonna walk away from the sport in 2020 because we've had my amateur career, and it was amateurs. I blew through the amateur quite quickly. I got my pro card in 3 years. When I started amateur, soon after amateur, I just started winning. And it was like, dude, it was to the point where, where you feel like life gives you a life lesson the moment you need it. What's this saying going on? When you're ready, the right teacher will show up. And I think for me, I needed that because I was winning shows easily. And it was getting to the point where it was almost becoming where it was like, come on, I'm that good. So when I went into the pros, it was a different kettle of fish. So I jumped in the pros and I was like, dude, I'm gonna be in the Olympia stage in no time. I would be like, thinking. And then life gave you your lessons. And then you got the knocks and the hammering. And then you realize, no, you ain't that good yet. You're not even there yet. Did the first show in Prague, I think, my first pro debut, came fifth in Prague. Prague was a big show. I had loads of names. I came fifth. I was like, this is no brainer. Look, I'm already fifth. Next show was Italy. I was like, I'm going to jump in that show and win it, man. There's no big name in there. I'm going to go into Italy, came eighth. I'm like, okay, that's what the hell? Okay, next one's Romania. I'm going to win that one. That's definite. Went there, came 11th. I'm like, what the hell? What's going on? And then from that point on, every show I did, it was like, oh, just not there. And it was just kept on getting knocked. And what happens is, the bodybuilding, you're paying for your travel, you're paying for your food, you're committing your whole life into this. Like, it's not something you just do half-cocked. It's not something where you can devote so much today for an hour and then go have the rest of the day and chill out and enjoy food and relax and just, no, bodybuilding is 24/7 all the time. So when you're devoting that much into something each year after year and you're not getting the results, very quickly becomes disheartening. Very quickly you start thinking, okay, all that work, nothing to show for it. Whole year of work, nothing to show. Another year, not really anything to show for it. Another year. So, and it started costing us a lot. So you're paying for all that food, you're paying for your travel, you're paying for a hotel, you're paying for, and then we were getting, and I was working full time at the same time in construction, and I was doing overtime, Mel was doing overtime as well, and we were putting all our funds into this thing, hoping that one day it will pay off. And we will go through a whole year of, she's working overtime, I'm working overtime, we're putting all our money in it, and then you go to a show and nothing happens, and you walk away with nothing. And then you're like, oh crap, we got to do it again next year. And you do it again, nothing. And after a while, we started getting into debt because we were like using credit cards to pay for our travel and everything else, and there was nothing to show for it. So where we go to, 2018, 2019, By the end of 2019, after 4 shows each year, 2020 was coming up, and I was just like, you know what? This is it. I'm not gonna do this anymore. It's just not. It's taking too much out of me. It's taking too much out of us, our relationship. With things where we could be going on holidays and enjoying normal life and having a decent life, but instead we're putting all our things into this, and we're coming off end of the year with nothing to show for it, but just more problems. So I'm just like, you know, I can't do this anymore. I can't watch us struggle like this and not have anything to show for it. So I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. So 2020, Mel convinced me, and both friends convinced me that, look, just do 1 more year. You're getting better. Just do 1 more year. If this year doesn't work out, then you can wrap your hands and say, okay, I gave it my go. I can leave. So I was like, okay. So picked out a show in April in 2020. And I was like, okay, full focus, do the show. It has to work out this year. Whatever happens, I got to make sure I make it to Olympia this year. If I make it to Olympia this year, if I win one show and make it to Olympia this year, one way or the other, at least I can say, okay, right, I did that at least. So I got to make sure I do that. So we went 2020 going through, and then March, and hey, COVID hits. And everything ended. You know, all the shows were canceled, everything was canceled. And at that point, I was already in prep for the Arnold Brazil at the time. I was already 6 weeks out, and then it's like all stopped. So I was like, look, I said this was going to be my last year. What are you going to do now? So at the time, you know, being where I was like, well, it probably won't last too long. I'm gonna carry on prepping anyway. And you know what? When the shows start up, whatever show comes up first, that's the show I'm gonna do. So I carried on prepping. So I ended up prepping, obviously, weeks after weeks, months after months, show after show. Gyms were closed. I remember even at the time I was driving an hour from where I was to go to my friend's gym, an hour away, and then driving an hour back home, then going back to work the next morning. And I was doing that for months on end. And I was just like, okay, you know what? You said you were going to give everything you have this year, just so you can say you've done it, and there's no regrets. So you have to do whatever it takes. This is what the premise is whatever it takes. Come on. So I did all that, did all the training, did everything for that whole year, and it just all went carried on. And obviously the whole thing in South Korea happened as well. It was the ending of it was August in 2020, where I got stuck in doing quarantine in a South Korean hotel just so I can get on a stage and do a show and qualify for the Olympia. Got stuck doing working out in the hotel room and doing handstand and push-ups and everything else just so I can get ready for a stage and that whole thing happened. And I came second in that show. Came back and, you know, whole 2020 did through all I did and still didn't end up with Olympic qualification. And it was a devastating year for me. I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done with this. And then to make it even more fun, when I was in South Korea doing all that whole like trying to prep for that show, I lost my job. So now it was like, that's it. You know, now I've lost everything. You've taken everything away. I have nothing to show for it. This is, now you start to feel like a fool. You feel like, dude, you were deluded. What did you think? This is it. Use your lowest point. And it's obviously a clear message that this isn't for you. This is not what you're meant to be. So for me, that was the point where I was like, okay, I'm done. Well, lucky enough, that was the same time. Right, I think literally the day after I lost my job was the day I got a call from Hostile and Fuad, because he literally saw my story and on YouTube and everything else, and saw what I was doing in the hotel in South Korea. And he said something hit him. He goes, I can never see someone that determined to achieve their goal before. And that was exactly what he wanted with the brand he was creating, that, you know, sacrifice with no regrets, you know, someone going after the goal against all odds. And he goes, that you fit that brand to a T, and you know, I want to put you on the contract. And they do. I remember he called me up. He was like, dude, like, who's paying for your travel? Who's paying for that? And I was laughing. Dude, of course I'm paying for all of it. We in debt from it. He's like, really? He goes, I was like, no, this is all me. And he's like, okay, you know, he was like, yeah, dude, I want to give you a shot. I want to give you that try. And thinking about it, before then, I've reached out to so many companies and so many people, and they've all just like, no, not interested. So for him to come up, and he was the first one to come up and say, look, I'll give you a chance. Let me give you a shot. Let's see what you can do with it. So that really was the only thing that I felt like was lifeline I was holding on to at the end of 2020. Everything else was just like, I was done. So when it came towards the end of 2020, you know, I was already like, even then I was still like, I don't know if I can do another year of this. I feel like I'm just giving everything. I'm not getting anything back. So Mel, Fuad, and all the guys, they're like, look, you just do 1 more year. Come on. You can do this. Just come on, give 2021, do something. We really feel like it can happen. You just need a little bit of help. And I was like, we kind of looked at it and go, okay, right now, for the first time, you don't have to work anymore. you can actually focus on bodybuilding because you're not got a sponsorship. You can actually focus on just doing this. It might be something small, but at least you can say, okay, right, now your focus that's spread around trying to balance your job and everything else, you can now just focus on just bodybuilding and see what happens. So I was like, okay, let me see what this feels like. Let me be able to, if I put everything in my hand, there's no distractions with the job and everything, I can just do bodybuilding and see what happens. So 2021 came along, and that was the moment where things finally started clicking, you know. And that was the moment I was like, okay, you know.
I've been getting tons of messages asking about my health protocols ever since I did the world's heaviest marathon. The experience took a toll, and getting back to optimal health has been an absolute journey. That's where Marek Health have been absolutely essential. Their approach is beyond quick fixes. It's about long-term health and performance. They work with medical professionals to create personalized, evidence-based plans tailored to your needs, using pharmaceutical-grade treatments and cutting-edge diagnosis. Whether it's TRT, peptides, supplements, or like me, getting full health analysis to get you back on track, Marek Health provides everything that you need. And it's not just for athletes. If you're an entrepreneur or businessman like me, you might want that renewed focus, clarity, and energy. That's when Marek Health can get your brain performing at its peak. From comprehensive blood work to customized health plans, Marek gives you the tools to optimize your life. If you're ready to take control of your health, go to marekhealth.com and use code Mulligan for 10% off. The link's down below. I can't recommend them enough. And if you just wanted to get started, I would go and get your blood work done. Go get assessed, find out where they can help you. Use the link down below for 10% off using code Mulligan. Let's dive back into the video.
Before that hostile contract came in, and I know you say it was just around a day between getting let go of and the hostile. What was that little moment in between? What was that like? Take us inside your head and like where you guys were. I remember
because what happens is I went over to South Korea, and they had a show happening 2 weeks before. So I contacted the promoters. I really want to do a show, but obviously with all the legislation restrictions flying, if I'm coming from the UK, I can only do a show in the UK, in Korea, without quarantining in a hotel for 2 weeks. So promoters saying nobody's even signing, nobody's even daring to do that. So if you want to do it, we'll help you out to get it done. So I went to South Korea and I did the whole, being in a hotel room, like, I mean, not in a hotel, like in the room for 14 days. You can't even leave the door. You're inside that room for 14 days. All your food, everything is in that room. It's like being in a prison. You know, for me, it was like boarding house all over again, but it was like being in a prison for 14 days. And I think the time I was so hungry, the idea that, look, if you claim you want this, you claim you want to be the best, you want to be a bodybuilder, but it's all good saying that when everything is great. When life really tests you, let's see how well you are to a man of your word. So let's see how truly you are serious about this. So that was my point of, okay, I want to answer that question when I say I want this, I mean it. So signing up for that was like me telling myself, I'm not playing, I'm serious about this. So when we went to the hotel, and I stayed in the hotel for 14 days, and it was crazy, and doing everything, training on the spot, using bands to do your lifts and push-ups and everything else to kind of get it. And towards the end of that, I remember the end of it, I was thinking, yes, I made it, 14th day. Great, awesome, this is amazing, yeah. Then I got a call from work, and what happened was, I did an interview when I was in the hotel room, like showing, like, look, yeah, this is really where I am. And someone from work seen it, and they were like, oh, you're risking our health by going to South Korea in the first place. So they fired me. And obviously it was COVID time and things were crazy. So I'm like, okay. So you can automatically imagine, at that point, I'm just like, my world has just fallen apart. Holy crap, what am I gonna do? This is so, okay, when I go back to the UK, I gotta go find a new job. I gotta go find something to do, okay. Don't panic. But already the panic button was already there, like, okay, Jesus, what am I gonna do? What can I do to make a living? I have to go find another job, I gotta do something. And then, I think a few hours later, the promoter calls me and going, yeah, Sam, the show, South Korea is going back into lockdown. And the show that we had planned is gonna either be canceled or postponed for another 2 weeks. So automatically I'm like, even that is now gone. So you can just imagine, it felt like your world right there was just a bunch of tumble bricks, and they were all just falling one after the other. And it just felt like it was absolute chaos. At this point, I just broke down. I was in tears. I was just like, my world had done. I just did. And I remember waking up that morning and just having all this news. And I told Mel, I told her what's happening. I was like, right now, I can't even think I can't even fathom this. So I'm just gonna lay down and go to sleep because it just was like your world is ending. So I went back and went to sleep, and I woke up and it just felt like, what now? What are you gonna do now? And a few hours later, Fuad called me and he was like, hey bro, like, how you doing and everything? And I told him, I was like, bro, I'm not doing too well. Not at all. Like at this point, this is what's happening and everything else. And he gave me a contract. And that for me was like, oh, okay. Even then I was scared because I was like, everything was falling apart. I'm like, is this really good news or is this just another bring my hope up so you can crash it down again? So I kind of like, okay, thanks, but I didn't know how to feel at that time. I didn't know if I was supposed to be really happy or I was supposed to be like, okay, but hope it really goes through or really happens. So stayed for another career for another 2 weeks after that because I was like, okay, you're already here. Might as well see if you can actually get a show done. So stayed for Korea for another 2 weeks after that. And you can sort of see that premise, it was a scary place to be, man. I've always worked my whole life. I've always had a job. I've always had that security of I'm going to 9 to 5, I'm going to whatever job I'm doing. And for the first time, I didn't have a job anymore. I didn't have anything. I was there. So every primal fear you've ever had about your life falling apart was right there in front of you. And it felt terrible. It felt absolutely terrible. It just felt like, man, you played a gamble to try to better yourself, and sorry, but you lost. And it felt like that at the time. And little did I know what that lifeline actually meant. Even at the time, I didn't realize that as much. But it's only later on that I actually realized what it meant. But at the time, it was lifeline. But I just thought, okay, but it's not a guarantee.
At what point did when you started winning the shows or moving towards like that sort of momentum to win shows? I'm just curious, what was the prize money like influencing that, because obviously some of the prize money, some of the shows could transform your lives.
Yeah, I mean at the time we were doing a pro show, and I think each pro show at the time was of 10K per win, and for me that's a lot. First one was in debt and everything, and that was like, holy crap! If I just winning one show, man, it's life changing. So we really won that. So when 2021 came along, the goal was like, okay, right, one show, get to the Olympia. One show, you just got to win one. I remember that year, we picked the show towards the back end of the year, so towards that September time. I remember going, okay, I think there were 5 or 6 shows left that year, or 7 shows left that year. And I was telling myself, I'm going to do every single one of them shows until I get one. I won't stop. I'll keep going for show after show until I get one, because I know I can. So we literally did that. We did Arnold Classic, which was in the UK Arnold Classic in September. And that show, I remember the prize money for that show was 30 grand for the first place and 10 for second place. And it went down the line that way. And I know one of the top guys were doing it from the UK at the time. And I was like, okay, I know I can probably, if I can't beat him, but at least I can come second, but I know I can come close to it. So when we did that show, we came second. And that was, for me, that was the first big prize money I ever got. I'm like, oh my God, just got 10K from win. Oh, and that felt like, okay, this year is going to do, but we still have to go on Olympia qualification, but this is good. So we went to another show in Italy, came third at that show. I was like, all right. And then went to Egypt, came third again. And then something happened where there was another show again in Prague. And by that point, I've lost to so many different guys over, and all the guys I've lost to in that spill, they were all doing that one show in Prague. So, I had Nathan Diasha, Rowley, Nathan Regan Grimes, Rafael Brandel, all big name heavy hitters in this show, and they were all in this one show. So the one show I thought I would definitely not win was that one. I was like, they've all just beaten me like 2 weeks ago. So it was definitely not this. I was like, but you know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in there anyways. Right there, I said I was gonna do every show. Let's do whatever it takes. So I remember going to that show just kind of in this, I was probably more relaxed because I did think, come on, you're not gonna win, but just be more relaxed about it. So we were doing that show, and I know one of my friends going, you know what? This is the show you're gonna win. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then we did that show, and we did prejudging. And prejudging, I'm like, okay, they moved me in and out of the middle all the whole time. Oh, that's nice. Maybe I'm somewhere between. I'm either first, second, or third. Like, either way, I'm happy with either one of the places we go. And when the end of the night that happened, we ended up winning that show, and it felt that moment, because this is after years of trying so hard. You finally got your Olympic qualification, you finally got your first pro win, you finally got everything, finally confirmation that it wasn't a waste of time. You didn't all that wasn't for nothing. All that. So that I remember the moment they called me as the winner, the flashbacks of every difficult moment, the flashback of everything. All the difficult, the debt, the hotel, the job loss, the pain, the agony, the crying, everything else of not making, all that floods in. Like it just floods in like an emotion, and it's completely overwhelming to you. And you just sit there looking, going, "Oh my God, we did it! It actually happened. We did it!" And it's completely overwhelming, And having that, it was a moment for us.
So that would be interesting to me actually to hear then. What's the process of qualifying for the Olympia?
So with the Olympia, they'll have a set of shows all through the year. And what happens is for someone, you have to be a professional body. You have to win your pro card by winning one of the big regional amateur shows. Once you win that, you have the pro card. And now you then have to go with all the shows lined up for the year. There might be 20 to 24 shows a year. You have to win one to qualify for the Olympia. And basically you have the start of the year, which is normally about March time, and there'll be a whole host of shows all the way to about August. And you have to win one of those shows to make it to the Olympia stage for October. So everybody who wins a show gets to go to the Olympia. So you can only imagine with the hundreds and hundreds of pros they have in the world and about 20 shows or sometimes even 16, they are very hotly contested, extremely contested. All the best, only the best of the best ever get to go. Only the best of the best ever get to fight one. And that's if one of them don't decide to do multiple shows and take multiple places out anyway. So that whole process of trying to qualify for Olympia is the pinnacle of the sport, is because if you want to go stand on stage with best, you have to be able to win one of those shows and prove that you're good enough. And it's something that is the prime time. This is the pinnacle of bodybuilding. This is okay. Everything else is just, up and coming. But now when you go in, you're going with the big boys and you have to be that good. There is nobody makes it to Olympia by accident. Nobody makes it by luck. Nobody makes it by mistake. If you're on an Olympia stage, you're officially one of the best in the world. So the premise of that is and Olympia is hardly ever, most of the time there's about 20 guys tops. So you be one of the top 20 guys, best bodybuilders on the planet. It's always hotly contested, and it's something that is such a prestige. So the minute you win a show and you go to Olympia, you're officially one of that top tier guys in the world. So the meaning of that is this is what bodybuilding is. This is what everybody wants to be. This is what everybody wants to get to. So that's what makes it so difficult and yet so alluring as well.
Do you remember the first time visioning raising the sandal? Like was there a time?
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine, because it's, for me, when I was going to bodybuilding and I said, okay, I wanted to go all the way. My thing was, okay, I just want to be able to say I was one of the best at what I do. I just want to be able to qualify for Olympia so I can say, okay, when I'm retired, I can look at it and go, see, I made it to Olympia. I was one of the best in the world at this sport. For me, that was good enough. That was it. That was my life dream. Like, okay, just make it to Olympia so you can say you were the best in the world at something. You were close to being one of the best in the world at something. That was good enough. So when we made it to Olympia in 2022, for me, I was like, you did it. And then we placed 6th our first Olympia. And I'm like, holy shit, you're top 6 in the world at something. You're top 6 in the world at this thing you love doing. You're one of the top 6 guys in the world, that's it. And that was like, that was a lot to take it. I wanted to be one of the best in the world. I was thinking maybe somewhere in the 11th, 10th place, so somewhere very lucky, but top 6? I was like, okay, hell. And at that point, we knew I had a lot in the tank. I was still fresh, I was still growing, I was still in it. And I was my first time. So I was thinking, well, if my first one was 6th, what can I go next year, So after a year on, we go back to the Olympia stage, and now you're 3rd in the world. And I'm like, at this point was the first time where the idea of it, you do realize you can't actually be Mr. Olympia. You can't actually win. You can't actually be number 1 in the world. You only got 2 guys in front of you. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to be that? Can you not see it? And I think that was like, okay, now we want to be Mr. Olympia. I want to be the best. Yeah, I think I can do it. So being on that stage a year later, and then standing there after a whole year of working for one goal only, to be Mr. Olympia, and working everything you've done It feels like the stars all align for that one moment. All the trials, all the tribulations, all the letdowns, all the setbacks, everything, it felt they were all a road that you had to go through. Every knock, every setback, every triumph, every tribulation, everything you went through felt like they were getting you ready for this one moment. They were building up your resilience. They were building up your character. They were building up your fortitude. They were building up your strength. So when that time comes, you can lift that trophy and say, yeah, I am Mr. Olympia. So when that moment came and you stood there and they go through the results, you're standing there going, okay, is it time? Is this the time? Have I gone through enough? Have I done enough? Isn't now the time for me to get that confirmation that, yeah, you're ready? So being there and having that moment called, you can imagine everything leading up to that moment, how you could feel. It's a lot. It's a lot. And even thinking about it now, it's still surreal. It feels like this really big thing. You still can't grasp all of it yet. You still can't hold it and say, damn, you've done it, but it's still just so overwhelming that it feels like it's a lot. Because I can already imagine, I can see all the 19 men or all the 18 men before me that have all picked up that trophy. And I remember watching every single one of them standing on that very same spot right before they get called out. And I can picture exactly where they are. And then to say you stand there, you're in that exact same position these years later, it's heavy.
You know, you achieved that, and you know the story of your life seems to be that you get close to something, you realize, hold on a second, I can take the next step. You achieved that. So then, what has it become? What's the one?
Now it's like, okay, because it feels like what happens is like with every part of life I reach a goal, I always think, okay, well, you've done it, you're happy, that's it, you're good. But then it's like, but you still have all this energy left. You still have all this drive. You still have all this compassion to go. You're not tired. You're not, let's go. So I'm like, well, I want another one. I want another one. And I want another one. So you keep pushing for the next and the next. And now that you're here, you're like, I want to be both Arnold Classic champion and Mr. Olympia champion at the same time. I want to carry that. I want to go into that. And I want to win one after the other and see how far can I take it and how far can I go with it and how far can this actually take me before I see it. And I was like, look, just instead of having this big open vision, just aim for one target and then the next one and then the next one, because that seems to be working great for you, just aim for the next one. Once you achieve that, then pick another one and another one and another one. And and the same thing I've always had with my physique is always like, I never said I wanted to be 300 pounds. I never said I wanted to be that big. I got to 280. Okay, 300 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds away. Go to 290. Ooh, close. What does that matter? 300. Okay, you're 300. What more can you do now? 310. Okay, 320. And you just keep going and you keep going and keep going and keep going. Well, you mastered that. Now what's next? You mastered that. Now what's next? Now you master that. And every time you get that, it gives you more confirmation of, okay, you are good at this. You are something. There's a lot there to give and you can do more. So open yourself up to the idea of pushing even further each time. Keep going. Because at the end of the day, what are you going to do with life if you're not chasing something for the next or chasing something that you can possibly imagine to achieve? So keep going after it.
What would you say, remove yourself from the sport in terms of an athlete looking in as sort of a fan? How would you describe somebody winning the Arnold and the Olympia in the same year?
Man, because it's something that has only been done once. Ronnie Coleman did it in 2001. It's only been one time. And it's all about, you're trying to build a legacy, you're trying to build something out of this and something out of your time of doing this. So as a fan looking in where you've seen bodybuilders that have come before you, champions that have all had a legacy built in this sport, doing what they do, and how much you look up to them, how much you premise them, how much you idolize their achievement, what they've done. And now you're in the same position. So as a fan, you're looking going, well, I want to build a legacy that I know that when I'm done and I walk away, somebody else is going to look back and go, that was something crazy. I want to see if I can top that. So I want to literally do that with my time here while I have it, is build a legacy, build something that you can look back and going, man, I had a great life. Look what I did. Well, that's amazing. I guess this is not a bad life to live after all.
I was just saying to Melina when we came here, myself and Neve were on the same flight where you won the 2023.
Oh,
Yeah.
Arnold.
We were out at Arnold's as well.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. We was out there, and you came on with, you had this huge statue, the huge trophy. And I remember there was a massive fuss about like trying to secure it.
They gave me this big trophy, and it's like you just won the most biggest show in your life. At the time, it was like, oh, you just won this. And I remember taking that thing off stage. I'm like, I ain't leaving. This thing is not leaving my sight for 5 minutes. I don't care what happens. I'm carrying it through the airport. I'm like, yep. My arm was achy. I was tired. I was like, nope. I'm okay. I'm taking this all the way to my home. I'm good. So when we go on the plane, I was like, I was like, no, I got it. Don't worry, I got it. He's gonna sit right here with me. I'll hold this thing all the way. So it was kind of like a promise, man. It's like, damn, this is proof that you've done it. You've done it. So it was like, yeah, I remember that. It hurts carrying that thing all the way, but yeah, it was like, damn.
What's really cool about that is you wouldn't have known this, but at the back of the plane, people were all whispering about, like, he's the guy who just won it. Like, he's the guy, and you've come from, humble beginnings. You've been trying to make it in the sport. There's a plane full of people like, that's the guy who just did that.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that, I remember winning the Arnold 2023 when I won it. And life automatically changed. Because you've done shows and everything else, and you come home, you're buzzing for a week, and then you go back to your normal life. Everything goes back to quiet. Won the Arnold, and I was expecting things to calm down. Everything, it never did. And you go in places, and people recognize who you are. Oh yes, you won the Arnold. Congratulations. And then you go in places where you were expecting nobody. I'm like, come on, man. Nobody watches bodybuilding. Not nobody watches there anyway. And people were like, oh, dude, congratulations. I'm like, really? Like, and you were getting that more and more everywhere. And I was thinking, holy crap, this is big. This is a lot. And I think that's my realization of how big bodybuilding became, how big bodybuilding was growing to be, where you were not just getting recognized in bodybuilding circles, you're getting recognized in the grocery store, you're getting recognized on the street, you're getting recognized for that achievement. And I was thinking, man, okay. So I was walking through the airport, and you always get stopped and you always get recognized. And I was thinking, damn, okay, this is crazy. This is mad. This is a lot. This boy is actually reaching out that many people. People are more aware of it. Arnold was a lot to swallow. It took me 6 months to finally sink in that, wow, you just won the Arnold. And I remember that was like, yeah, okay, that was big. The Olympia was a completely different ballgame. The Olympia was insane. Olympia, it was insane. It's crazy. Olympia, the minute we won the Olympia, I told him, like, the minute I got off stage, all the way through till the moment, I think the week we moved here, which was literally 4 weeks ago, it didn't stop. I didn't get a minute to myself. It was just full on. We traveled to China, Italy, everywhere you go, from the moment you start, everywhere you went. Like the moment I went on stage, they were just, okay, you need to do this, you're gonna be here, you're gonna do this, you're gonna be, people gathering, people want photos of it. It was all the time. And I was like, oh, I didn't, when you stop and go, that's what it means to be Mr. Olympia. Okay, this is a lot. Okay. Let's you gotta get used to this very quickly, because this is something that you're not used to, and it's really that. And that was like, wow, okay. Now I get it. Now I get why the Olympia is the best of the best. Why the Olympia is number one, because it's a lot. I was blown away. I was surprised how much people are aware of Mr. Olympia and how much people are apprehensive of what that means. And you kind of all of a sudden go, oh man, this is, because even on the plane, when we were on the plane, the pilot comes going, oh, I would like to congratulate the current Mr. Olympia. And I'm like, oh, I think that means me. Okay. And it was, and you walk through the strip in Vegas and the billboards and you're like, I mean, this is something where you're going from a guy that has never been in the public eye, like never, always been quite introverted, quite segregated, everything else. And you're walking around and people recognize you everywhere. Your image is on the walls and everything else. And you're looking at it's so real. It doesn't, people think that you get used to things like that. Maybe some people do, maybe some people have, but you never get used to it. It never feels like it's a normal thing. It never feels, oh yeah, of course, yeah, no. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh crap, they got a picture of me on the wall, okay, crap. And it always feels like a lot. It always feels like, this is, And you keep because every time, I remember for weeks I would wake up after that Olympia and I wake up and going, is it all a dream? Is it at one point I'm gonna wake up and going, oh, that was a nice dream. Oh well, back to work now. But every single time I wake up and you're thinking, crap, yeah, it's really it. You really are here. It's not a dream, it's actually happening. And even through now, it doesn't change. It never changes. Because you've idolized this title, you've idolized this sport, you idolized this moment for so long, and you worked hard for it so long. But even then, you never really think, what happens when you get it? Like, what will actually happen afterwards? You never think about it. You just have that goal of, okay, I gotta get better so I can be here. I gotta get better. And then you get it, and it's like, holy shit, I forgot about this. I didn't know this was coming with this other part. I didn't know this is what happens. And it really is, you just sit there almost like a deer trapped in the headlights looking, going, okay, thanks. Wow, okay, thank you. And it's a lot to take in.
Just a quick interruption for the video, guys. As many of you know, we are independent creators and filmmakers, but there is a massive attack on us right now. Traditional media over the last few years has started to slowly die. They are no longer the independent voice that you first thought they were. That's why we've created Mulligan Brothers Patreon. We've built something special for our most dedicated supporters, and I want to break it down for you real quick. The supporter tier gets you ad-free early access to both video and audio versions of Mulligan Brothers interviews 24 hours before it goes public. The executive tier gets you everything that a supporter tier gets, plus more. Exclusive interviews and behind the scenes content, walk and talks, daily routines, unreleased interviews, the stuff that you don't see anywhere else. And finally, the executive producer tier. Everything from the supporter tier and the executive tier, plus exclusive perks. Access to our treatment packages. Be the first to see which guests are coming up and get insight into the topics we'll be discussing before anyone else. And you'll even get an executive producer credit on every single documentary that we make. So if you've ever wanted to support the Mulligan Brothers mission of inspiring change so we can go around the world and get these stories that nobody else will, this is exactly how you do it. Go to patreon.com/Mulligan Brothers or click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Join the community and help us inspire change. Let's dive back into the video.
Again, removing yourself as Mr. Olympia now, you know, taking that sort of perspective away, how would you have described who Mr. Olympia is? You know, how would you describe like who that person is, what they've had to do, like all that kind of stuff, if somebody asked you in the past?
The Mr. Olympia is not just the best body physique in the world. It's also the pinnacle of bodybuilding. It's always the representative of bodybuilding. You are the defining factor when they say, okay, who is the top in the world at this? Who is the representative of the sport? Who is the person that is at the top of the mountain? Who is who is the bodybuilder everybody inspires and looks at and going, yeah, he's number one. That and your representation just goes beyond just the physique part of it. It goes beyond representing what this sport is as an entity, as a thing. That's what your premise is. So when you stand and you walk around and people see you, you shouldn't even need to, they should see, okay, that's Mr. Olympia. And not only should you look the part, you should carry yourself as a part because you are now the champion of this thing. And your image, everything, you're taking the sport with you when you do this. So you realize that is the responsibility of having a sport, is the responsibility of having this. And you're trying to prove something. Like I keep saying, like, look, I came from nothing. This sport gave me everything. Everything I've ever asked or even imagined I was gonna get. I always say, like, you know, everybody, you know, whether working a job or you're sitting there in a truck, going, you see a nice car, you go, oh man, if I ever won the lottery, I'll get that. I would love to travel one day and go to this place, or I'd love to have a house like this, or one day if I won the lottery, or one day this sport gave you all of that and then some. Like literally everything you've ever asked for, you ever imagined that you wanted. Travel the world, done it. Dream car, done it. Big house, done it. Because of this one sport. How can you not want to build it up and help grow the sport back? How do you not want to give back to it? So I feel like being Mr. Olympia, this is what is a way of saying thank you. Because I wouldn't have never, ever imagined I would have the life I have today if it wasn't for this sport. It was beyond my understanding. It was beyond my fathomness. So to be able to stand here now and go, man, you know, I have this because I was able to do this sport and the sport rewarded me with this. Man, I feel like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna do whatever I can to help grow it and whatever I can to help promote it and whatever I can to help build it up so the next person that comes behind me can follow that footstep and do the same thing, and we can help make this thing a lot better and a lot more and build it up for what it is and let people see the beauty in it and see the positive in it and what it actually brings to the world and what it actually brings to guys like me that didn't stand a chance of doing anything else.
What's the biggest obstacle that stands in the way of your next Olympia for yourself? Like, what do you think it is?
I think it's the schedule. You know, it's because one thing we can do when coming up, we always traveled a lot anyway. We always try to mastermize, okay, your training, your traveling, your appearances, your everything else. You always try to kind of get used to that. But at the same time, you know, you can't, where in the past we've had a few Mr. Olympias that because of the demanding of this sport and being able to do it at this level, you can't do anything else. They will win the title and you don't see them for another year. They get locked away, they focus on their training, they focus on that, and then they come out for the next Olympia. You see them on stage and then you don't see them again for another year. But whereas that is one way of sort of securing your physique, always improving, getting better, it doesn't help promote the sport as it should. So my aspect has always been like, look, I remember when I was watching this sport, I was watching, you know, Phil Heath, Big Ramy, all the guys that came before me. I remember watching them on screen and I remember going to expos and stuff, but I never saw them, you know, you never saw them there. And I felt like, you know what, I would have loved to meet these guys. I was so inspired to see them and get the chance to meet them somewhere. So I felt like, you know, I wanted to make sure that I'll be able to do that when I'm in this position. I'll be able to travel all around the world and be able to see people and be able to say, okay, right, come see Mr. Olympia in the real life. Come see what it looks like. Come see who this guy is. Come see him. If I'm in your city, come out and come see it to help promote that aspect of it. And that obviously comes with a lot of task in terms of trying to balance both training and that discipline in a lifestyle where you're constantly traveling or constantly moving from one place to another. So it's something that you're trying to juggle, and it's something that you have to be very extremely disciplined at. You can't just willy-nilly. You got to know you have to have 5 to 6 meals a day, specifically at these times. You have to train every day, specifically these times. On top of that, you got to have calls, you got to have seminars, you got to go meetings, you got to travel in those whilst you're trying to sustain all that at the same time. So this is the challenge of it. This is where it becomes a lot, and you're trying to make sure that you've come up with a formula that allows you to do both. And this is kind of what we know. We always knew, like, becoming something will always be the biggest challenge. Will be the idea of, okay, you need to make sure that your bodybuilding don't slip, but at the same time, you need to make sure you capitalize and you do this other part that no one else has ever done before. You need to be able to juggle both, and you have to be good enough to do it. So yeah, I know that was always going to be one of the challenging parts we'll have this year.
That's cool to hear, man. Like, yeah, it's like, I guess a lot of people think, oh, the second time is going to be the easiest time. It's not, yeah.
I think the second time is where you know it really, because you recognize, now you get given this responsibility, and now it's a big one. And now it's like, okay, you still have to train just as hard as you did to get to the title, but now you have to even push even harder to make sure you maintain and get better at holding that title, while at the same time, now you have to do all these things too. So it's almost like getting a promotion, almost at a job. It's like, wait, you get a promotion now, you get better pay, but guess what? You got to do now all these other tasks at the same time. So it's like, hey, okay, oh boy, thanks, but yeah. So this is what you kind of look at it at. So it's trying to make sure that you can come up with a way of actually mastering this and mastering it all and being able to get secured in that very quickly, because it gets dumped on you very quickly. I mean, if you're not aware of it, it was, I mean, for the first month, the whole month of November, I remember I was in bits. It was overwhelming. My phone did not stop ringing constantly. And because it's calls from all over the world, it doesn't matter what time of the day, what night, so your phone is, and you just like, and you very quickly start becoming overwhelming. For me, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. This is becoming a bit much. And it took a while, I spoke to Fuad and I spoke to Bill, and they just like, look, you can't please everybody. You can't be everywhere. You can't please everywhere. You need to okay, now pick what's important to you and then buy your time and then do this properly so you don't burn out. You have to now segregate your time the same way and spread your time out quite healthily, and actually, so you can actually focus on this, because it's going to be a lot and it's going to get more and more every time you go. Every time you do this, it will get more and more. So you have to come into a point of, okay, saying no to some people and say, just no. And knowing the people to say, okay, right, I got enough time for this for. So it's something that is like, I think probably last 2-3 weeks, that's when we finally getting a lot more hangers onto it and go, okay, right, this is what we're doing. We're completely booked out for the rest of the year. This is where we're at. This is what time you got to focus on training. This is time you have to dedicate to this. This time you have to dedicate to family. This is it now. You got to sort of wrap your mind around that.
I appreciate you having us here today, by the way. Like,
course,
I understand, you're 5 or 6 weeks out at this point.
6 weeks out at this moment.
Yeah, which is that. So this is I heard you speak about before studying your competition, and like that's, you always had someone to focus on and study your competition. Has that become difficult now that you've become number one?
I wouldn't say it's difficult. It's almost like shifting your focus. Like, okay, you always had a target. You always had somebody that, okay, right, I'm going to the show. Who's the top guy in the show? That's the guy. Okay, that's the guy I gotta beat. Okay, be his strengths, match his weaknesses. You gotta play that role of, okay, you gotta be able to capitalize on that and do what you can to take him out. So that gives you this laser vision. You're in the gym, you're training with this. Okay, I gotta get him. And you everything you do is like, you gotta get him. When all of a sudden now you're the top guy and the target's on your back, it's all like, oh crap. But now, one thing we always kind of developed at the same time we were doing that all these years was, my target was always my physique the year before or the show before. So when I look all the videos and all the documents we have, all the pictures I have of the previous year at that same time, I look back and I go, okay, right, I gotta beat him. I gotta make sure that's bigger, that's better, that's harder. Everything about my physique I have to beat it. I have to beat it next time I get on stage. So that has always been something we've always held hand in hand. I gotta beat my old self. I have to be better. It has to be better than what I was last time. So now we're in this position now where there's no other person in front of you. For you to keep pushing that scale and pushing forward is, okay, we just did the Olympia, you won, but there was things you weren't happy about, things that you can be better at. Time to fix them, time to work on them, time to pick yourself apart, be your own harshest critic, tear everything out. How can you be better? How can you make what you're doing more efficient? How can you make it more better? How can you improve each one of it? And that's what you kind of have to do to keep pushing that skill and keep making sure that you're moving forward. And you're never just sitting there and resting on your laurels, go, well, I won. I just come back the same way I did last time. You're gonna get beat.
What was it like having to deal with the criticism, you have an unproven coach or, somebody who's not been in the sport as much? Like, what was that moment like for both of you?
I mean, for us, for a long time, we found it funny because we didn't even know, because we lived the life like this. We've done it right. Like I said, Mel got me into bodybuilding. Every single prep, every single training, every single thing I've ever done, she knows like the back of her hand. She knows just as much as I do. She knows everything. So we've been backwards and forward with each other for years. It's not even like, even when people don't understand that, even when I had coaches working with me, they never communicate with me directly. They communicate with her. Oh, how's he feeling today? What did he have? What did he eat? Oh yeah, he did this, he did that, she was always there in the conversation. When we sat down after, before a show, and we was like, okay, what do we want to do with this show? We all sat down as a trio and said, okay, right, what do you think? What do you think worked? Oh, he was better when he did this. He was better when he did that. Okay. And we all put our brains together. We all come up with a plan together to do the next show. This is what we've developed for years. So when we came to the point where it was like, okay, we need a new coach, and I was like, oh, you do it. It was just a simple no-brainer. It wasn't even like a thought. It was just like, well, duh, you do it. But we didn't understand that on the outside world looking in, they didn't see that. People didn't know that. So when I said, oh yeah, Mel's coaching me, people that knew, they was like, oh, duh, why not? She's perfect. So when we got a lot of backlash going, oh, I'm proving coach, another person, what does she know, whatever. I'm like, have you been watching them? So that was the first time I was like, oh, people didn't actually know how involved she was at my journey this whole time. They didn't have an idea. So I kind of smiled, we kind of smiled going, oh, you're about to see something then. Get ready. So when you think, we did Arnold, Ohio, and then Mel picked me up for the Arnold, UK. And they were like 2 weeks apart. People always saw drastic different in my physique just that 2 weeks. Because that was the moment I was like, I told you she knows what she's doing. But even then, it wasn't like people weren't convinced. They just didn't quite get it. I was like, well, now she's got a year to get me ready for the Olympia. And I looked at it and I was like, And there was a lot of things being said, and it was frustrating because you kind of, you know this, you've seen this, and you put it on your videos, you talked about it over and over again, and you feel like no one listened. And I was like, you do realize she knows more about this sport and my physique more than anybody else on this planet. She knows me inside out, not just physique, mentally. She knows what I take. She knows everything. Like you live with your coach that knows everything about you. You couldn't pick a perfect situation ever. Like if she says eat this, that's all you eat. If she says that's all you do. If she said train at this time, that's all you do. There's no, this is it. And she sees you every day, every single moment. Not just when you're your best, but when you're your worst. She knows what you look like every time because she's always there. I'm like, you do realize this is the perfect coaching situation here. But people they didn't see it that way. So when you had to go through a whole year of people, debating, he's gonna look worse than he's ever looked. This is a terrible idea. This is bad. This is whatever. And you're standing there. We kind of, that's why I said we had to laugh. We're going, they really don't know, do they? They're gonna find out. So when the Olympia stage came along, I was like, And I said to her, I was like, the minute we are winning, I'm gonna call you to come on the stage and you're gonna pick up that trophy because it's yours. So when we went on that stage and that happened, I was like, told you so. So that's why because it was hard listening to people that didn't really know, but they had a lot to say. And it's hard to listen it's one thing when it's your friend or anything, but when it's your wife, it's like, it's personal. That is when I'm like, yo, come on, we have lines. It's that borders you don't cross. Like we didn't make, even the idea that people didn't stop to think. Why would somebody that's already at the top of their game in a professional sport where they're one of the best in the world, all of a sudden going, by the way, I'm gonna have my wife to coach me now. And you don't think there was any reason for that? Like he just randomly picked somebody randomly, oh yeah, you can coach me now. And there must be a reason. If he's picking someone there, an informed decision, there must be more to it. There must be one. And they never took the time to go back and say, okay, like, from what I remember when he said in this interview, he said his wife was really involved. From what I remember when they did this video, she was really there, like changing his poses. But I remember they didn't bother doing their research that way. And I was like, dude, the signs were there the whole time. So when we walked out on that stage and people were like, oh, he looked the best he's ever looked. You kind of like, yeah, well, and you're gonna keep seeing that more and more because now where she's just the one had just fully control of everything, she's just gonna get better at it. And she's gonna make me better at it. So I'm like, every time we get on stage, you're gonna be like, well, there she goes, she's done it again.
You say we a lot, which, I don't know if you know you consciously do that, but you do say, like, which is really nice. And I think it was, there might have been a big article about it where you fell to your knees and they wrote about, that moment. But seeing the footage of you two embrace and like that, what's that moment like for you,
Oh God, it felt like, especially after the kind of year we had where we felt like we had a lot to prove. That we made all that moment. But now there was just so many boxes ticked in that moment where it's like, not only was it the person that got you into the sport in the first place, it was the same person that went through all the bad, hard times with you, the person that was in debt with you, the same person that crawled through the mud with you and went through the fight and the battle, the same person that picked you up time and time and time when you got hit and told you don't give up, one more time, the same person that went through all of that. And they were right there. Every training session, she was right there. Every video, she was right there, holding you through every set, every rep, all time and time again. And even when, other coaches were involved, she was still right there, holding and putting everybody in their place and saying, no, he can't do that, he can't do this. She was working that whole time. And then you have this finale where the final year before that happens, you then have this person that's been there the whole time being completely, utterly selfless in every way, gets completely demolished by people's opinion that didn't care or didn't know. And you had to sit there and grip your teeth and take it, And that for me, it really pissed me off, Because I sat there and I heard so many foul things being said. And I wanted to lash out. I felt like, I'm not putting up with this. But she told me, don't, just leave it. We'll show them, don't do anything. And you have to sit there and hear people that know nothing talk so badly about somebody that you love, and not only love, they are selfless in every way. And you have to sit there and listen to that. So I took that to the gym. And I made sure I tear this world apart to prove my point. So when we stood on that Olympia stage and that moment happened, it wasn't just, oh, look, he did it. It was, no, we did it. We told you, and you didn't believe us. Now, here you go. And I'm going to keep doing that until you can't take enough of it. I'll do it every year until I make it clear that this was not just me. There was somebody there this whole time that you didn't think much about, that you didn't give any power to, and you tossed to the side. You thought, she's just a wife. I'm going to show you what she can do, and I'm going to be that tool of it.
Thank you for sharing that, man. Thank you for sharing that. I know obviously it was such a moment for you, like a happy moment to raise that trophy. And I don't know if you would feel this way, but the way you just spoke then, was there a satisfaction in, excuse my French, in saying "f you"?
Oh God, yeah. God, yeah. That moment, it felt right there at that time. It felt like, oh yeah, this one, I'm not, because I always said to her, I remember we were going out, I always said to her that, you know what, most of the time I've been through a lot, through life where people haven't believed in you, people have said stuff, and you've proved them wrong in the end. And every single time I never turned around and said it. I was just, okay, well, I proved my point. I don't need to say I told you, so I just move on to the next thing. But that one hurt so much because it wasn't directly at me, it was directly at somebody I cared about. And I was like, no, this time when I prove my point, I'm gonna put it in your face and make sure that you see it. So when that moment happened where, you know, they called the winner out, they put out a gold trophy there. First time I was like, yeah, pick it up, that's yours. Now pick it up and show them all that, there we go. There you go. And that was for me, felt like, yeah, that was my fuck you moment. Yeah, you know, deal with it, you know. So, you know, so even what happened made it sweeter is like, it felt good when I lifted it up, but when she lifted it, it felt all the more sweeter. And I would say that was my favorite photo. That was my favorite moment. I was like, yeah, great.
You know, that fire that gave you that year, are you able to carry that through into,
God, yeah. Because even now, you're still kind of seeing this, and you're still going, you know what? I know, because I always find out like what happens is it unlocks a new level for you. Every single time you go through a tribulation, it doesn't just open the door and then you go back out of it. It unlocks something that you never thought you could do. So when you push so hard, and you're thinking, come on man, I'm giving all I got, I don't know if there's another level beyond this. And then you find drive and you push and you go through and you go, oh, I can lift heavy, I can push harder, I can go in. Once you discover that, you don't go back. You're like, okay, now I want to go, what's next? What's the next one? I want to unlock another level. So you're constantly breaking through doors and breaking through walls. And maybe we're saying, oh, he keeps transforming, he keeps getting better. What's he doing? Every single time we do a prep, I feel like you unlock a new level. You unlock a new door. And you go, ooh, I didn't know I could do this. Now I know, okay. Now I'm going to do this and find out what's next. So when I find that aggression that past year, and I felt like, man, like I keep saying, life gives you the right teacher when you need it, you know, and it felt like it gave me that idea going, you know what, when this is how far you can push when you're really mad and you really pull that part into you. So, okay, guess what? Now I know that's a trick I've learned now. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna know how I can channel that and I can use it now. Use it year after year again, use it again, because that takes you to a level where you never knew you could push yourself to or take yourself to before. So use that again.
Wow. I mean, it is really powerful. I think, you know, ending on around that note, and I think we've covered everything, but I'd love you to just do sort of what it takes, mindset, the work, everything that you've poured into it in some kind of like monologue. Like what did you give to the sport, or what have you given so far?
I would just say this, man, you know, we all have like goals and ideas and things that we would love to achieve. And the sad truth about it is like 99.9% of us never really get to achieve that. We speak about it, but we lie in either the comfort zone of where we are at, or the idea that we know that we will never really achieve. So we just kind of live for to go one day. And I always got to say to people that, look, if you want something, you get one life. You only get the one. There's no reruns. There's no, well, I'll start again. No, you get this one. If you don't do it, it's done. It's gone. So don't spend your time wishing or waiting for when the stars are aligned or when things feel right. Because I can tell you, it will never feel right. There will never be the right time to do something. You have to make that happen. You have to go in there, because a life going after a goal whether you achieve it or not is never a life wasted. So just do for it, go for it. What you will never be the right time. You will never feel right. You will never be the, oh, this is the time I feel I'm ready to do it now. No, you will never be ready. So go for it. And every time you go for that, don't stop and regret, oh, I don't know, maybe, no, go for it. Because I can tell you that you always regret the things you don't do more than the things you did. Regardless of whether you succeed or not, you can at least say, yeah, I went for it. Then, oh, I wish I did. So I always say to people, man, this is the only reason why I'm here. Because I know time and time again, I took a risk and I'm like, this is a big one. I don't know if it's right or not. But I'd say, well, what else you got? If you fail, you're still there anyway. If you succeed, well, you've changed everything. So why not? So, and I've used that premise over and over. When every time something scares me and change scares me and the idea of trying and going for something scares me, I always go, well, you've already achieved something, so what else are you gonna do? Go for it, why not? You only live once, and you genuinely only live once. So, yeah, so I always say to people, man, please, life, going after something is never a life wasted. So, go for it.
I mean, your willingness to do it is incredible. I know I said that was the last one, but what are you willing to give? Like, what are you willing to give?
I'm going to give away everything else to even get the memory of it. Because it's like, you understand, like everything comes, everything goes. There's nothing, we're all gonna die, we're all gonna move on, we're all gonna be forgotten. Eventually everything comes and goes. But at least the memories we have is the most valuable thing to us, because that's all we can have is the memories of our time here, and knowing that is the most valuable thing to us. So don't regret, losing things because you try. Don't regret things. Go for something you want. Be willing to do it. Be willing to step out of your comfort zone and try something and be like, okay, well, at least even though it didn't work, I got the memory of it. And you never look back on those memories of things you try to do and frown upon them going, oh, I wish I didn't do that. That was a completely bad idea. Especially when you're trying to go to something that you enjoy, you're gonna love, and something you want. It's the idea of, look, give it a go. Just give it a chance, try it.
Thank you so much for today. This has been incredible. I'm excited to see you train as well. I'm really excited to see it. Thank you to the Patreon members for making this possible, and also just a massive shout out to Marek for, Marek Health helping support us, and I know they do great work with yourself as well. So thank you to Marek Health. Yeah.
Marek has obviously, they've been a big support to me the past year since I've been with them, and I think for them to recognize that from the get-go, last year they reached out to me, and for them to recognize that and help push me along in it, it has been a really good help. And I've seen the members they have in there, how they're all hardworking people, and they've all something that they've thrived in their own craft. And to see Marek supporting guys like that and supporting guys like me, it's really made for a really good partnership and I got to give my hats off to them for being able to help with that.
Yeah, I second that completely. Marek, we spoke about what we were trying to achieve, and with projects like this in particular, and they were nothing more than supportive. That's everything that they wanted to do for us. And yes, the team as well, just incredible team of people.
And it's their understanding and their ability to learn from other people and what people are doing and be able to open-minded to it, and especially the sport I do, where it's so physical and it's so demanding and it's so misunderstood as well. For them to have, a team that are open-minded, understanding the idea of it and willing to learn and adapt to you and sort of pick out what a way for them to make you better. It's something that is just completely valuable, and I commend them for it massively.
Yeah, just on that lastly is again from my experience, I'm a filmmaker.
Yeah.
I do a little bit of training in my spare time. With the variety of people that they're able to cater for to Mr. Olympia is pretty.
It's pretty, yeah. It's pretty well. And the fact that they even reached out to me before I was Mr. Olympia, and they were able to come up to me and say, look, what can we do to help support you? And you see that you're going after this goal and this dream, and we can see how well you're progressing in it. Is there anything we can do to help you move forward with it? And right from the get-go, communicating with them and telling them, okay, look, if this is what I need, I know we push our body to the extreme. This is what the highest end of the sport is. He's taking your body to the extreme. And for me to be able to say to them, look, I just need a way to be able to segregate that, make that as safe as possible for everything I'm doing and how far I got to push my body. If there's anything you guys can do to help support that, that would be great, because I still want to be able to have a family life. I still want to be able to have a life after bodybuilding is done. I still want to be able to stay healthy throughout the whole process, and having that support from you guys will really help with that. And for them to do that is is really changed my premise the past year and helped me achieve the goal I have.
We're just speaking about that as well. The idea of being healthy, I think bodybuilding and some of these sports, similar to strongman as well, you're pushing your bodies to like these crazy limits. And at the top end, you can see disasters all the time happening. How important is it for you to remain healthy? You know what?
One of the things I loved about this sport in the first place, one of the things I go into it, is the fact of taking the human body to the extreme, to the utmost extreme. I always strive the sports, man. I've always been good at different sports throughout my life, from one sport I went to the next. But in a sport where I'm able to push myself and take myself to the utmost extreme level humanly possible, it was one of the biggest, for me, that was the biggest draw for it. So being able to do that, but yet to know that, there's always a price for pushing your body to that extreme, that is just given. There's always going to be a price to pay for it. But to have a company that will be able to help manage your health and manage you whilst you do your trip, actually achieving that, and you're not having to back off because of that, but you're still able to sort of go after that goal of find the most extreme level you can, have a company that supports you through it. For me, that's something that's extremely important.